let's talk about the censorship for Roald Dahl. Now, Roald Dahl is one of Wales's most prominent literary icons. His books have influenced and have been a part of many children's and now parents' lives as they read them to their young ones, me included. So it was a little bit bizarre to read that Puffin Books was going to retrospectively censor the works of Roald Dahl to make them more sensitive to readers. I wholly see this as, to use Salman Rushdie's phrase, absurd censorship. It is worthwhile noting that these changes are only going to be applicable to Britain, and that's the current information I know as of the day I'm recording. So these changes of Dahl's work could go internationally. There has been a plethora of discussion, which is always a good thing in relation to the editing of Dahl's work, and that is, well, is this editing or is this censorship? And people kind of fall on the line between there, but for me, I'm here with censorship, because censoring, and let's talk about film, because I think more people are aware and will be cognizant of how film works. So once someone has created a work, it's edited down, and then it goes to a censor, and the censor will deem if the content within that film is gross, unfit, or unacceptable to audiences. They then censor the work. The person who makes that decision is not an editor, they are a censor. The reason why we're okay with this and no one really makes a fuss is that all of that is done prior to the release, to the publication of the film. No one has a complaint about this, but I think people would start raising eyebrows at what they are doing with Roald Dahl if you were to take a film, retrospectively begin to censor, to remove, to redact, to change the film in order to suit audiences now. Let's be frank, no one had a complaint about Roald Dahl's work. There has never been a conversation over the insensitivity, the inappropriateness, or the unfit nature of Dahl's work for kids. So the publishers and the estate of Dahl have decided this. It's worth noting here that Dahl died in the 1990s. Now, if he was alive and wanted to revise his text, I think I'm okay with that. As the author, he has control of how that work is to be structured, how it's to be contained, and ultimately the author does have the final say over if they want it to be edited or if they want it to be censored. There's a mutual conversation that goes on within those machinations to the publication of a work. Dahl's not here anymore. I don't think Puffin was ready for the public opinion of this, and as such they've now kept the original books, but you can buy a sanitized, almost radio edit of Dahl. I know people are throwing the word microaggression around, but really, is anyone surprised that Augustus Gloop, the character who spends the majority of his time gorging on food like the gluttonous mess he is called fat? Like, is anyone surprised at that? But equally, to change the words and to call him enormous, I mean, do we now have to call it enormous acceptance or enormous phobia? Like, come on, people, like, fat is a word. We're all comfortable with what that means. But the message of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is that Augustus Gloop and the other kids meet their demise because of their traits. If Augustus Gloop was not the fat kid that gorged on anything, he wouldn't have guzzled the chocolate river, fallen into it, and ended up stuck in a pipe. Equally, if Veruca Salt wasn't the spoilt prude that she was, she wouldn't feel entitled to have whatever she wants, because her father always says yes. But it is Augustus Gloop's fatness that apparently is really inappropriate for kids. I don't know if the same censoring of that word is going to happen to Matilda, but people like Bruce Bogtrotter because he's fat and ends up eating the entire cake. Like, we applaud him for that because he's like the only kid who could do it. And while he feels as though, no, maybe he's gone too far into the chocolate cake, the fact that all the kids are there to watch fat Bruce Bogtrotter smash that cake is the reason why we love Bruce Bogtrotter because he does it. He achieves it. He Nico avocados that cake and we love it. But the reason why I use Bogtrotter and Gloop is that both kids are fat, both eat loads of chocolate, but we champion one and demean the other. And that's kind of, would you believe it, the point. But some of the censoring is just bizarre. Changing when Matilda reads Joseph Conrad to Jane Austen. Like, are kids really going to make any connotation between Jane Austen and Joseph Conrad? No. Personally, I feel as though the censor has been made because they want kids to read it. And when you have Dahl's books on a curriculum and you're putting it into kids' hands, and they don't really have a say if they want to read it or not, which is why I read The Railway Children against my will at the age of 11. Do you know what I would do? Put something else on the curriculum. If we're that concerned about the kids reading that Augustus Gloop is fat and that Matilda has read the works of Joseph Conrad, just choose another book by that stage. The fact here is that you don't have to engage with these works. If you're a parent and you don't want your kid reading Dahl, guess what? You don't have to buy it. If a school does feel as though Dahl is inappropriate, they can choose other books on the curriculum. You don't have to read it. The legacy and impact of Dahl is not going to subside with the censoring of a few words. In recent days, another publisher has decided that they're going to retrospectively censor the works of Ian Fleming because of how offensive it is to women, which at that point, well, how far do we go? Like, well, let's change Lolita. I think paedophilia is very offensive. Let's make Lolita 21. You know another book that is really offensive? The Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. Why don't we just censor that? Because Salman Rushdie has caused way more offence than Charlie and the Chocolate Factory has ever managed. Ever. Let me put it bluntly. No one likes retrospective censoring. In the late 1900s, there was a conservative lady, Mary Whitehouse, who went out of her way doing campaigns, writing petitions to retrospectively censor works. No one was on her side. And some people might agree with that because Mary was right-wing. But now we've shifted the political spectrum, and if you think that people are going to now be on the right-wing side agreeing with Mary Whitehouse, you are a buffoon, you are an idiot, and quite honestly, you are deluded. No one should be censoring already published works. But because of nowadays everything has to be political, you're either some woke person or you're some fascist. But you want to know my political standing on all of this? The artists should have dictation of what they want within reason. Editing and censor is important prior to the publication of the work. Once it has been put out into the public domain, it should not be touched. So allow me to speak to you directly. If you agree with Mary Whitehouse, you are a buffoon. If you agree with what Puffin wants to do and other publishers in regards to retrospective censoring, you are a buffoon. If you have called for the censorship of Salman Rushdie's work because it offends you, you are a buffoon. I vehemently detest that somehow people within my circle are bringing identity politics into this, somehow applauding this because Dahl is just another rich white male. If this was Salman Rushdie or some other minority group, the people applauding this would somehow begin to restrain their wrists. Let the kids read Roald Dahl. They'll be fine.